moving on to our next speaker, it's Ollie Richardson, Head of Social at PhD. I just thought a reminder to everybody that there's a Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. Please put your questions into there. Try to use the chat button there. And again, another reminder that there's something else. There's lots going on behind the scenes on the app and the virtual pub and all those sort of things. So go there as well. So, moving quick. Now, Ollie, over to you. You've got 99 seconds before I phone you off. Go.
Thank you very much, Justin. Next slide, please. At the end of 2019, I was asked to contribute to a MediaTel article on defining social strategies for the year ahead. I decided to use the analogy of VUCA from the American military and how it relates to social and influencers. VUCA stands for situations that are volatile, uncertain, complex and ambiguous. My prediction was that this was a good barometer for the year ahead. Well, as far as predictions go, I think I should probably have bought a lottery ticket on that day too. The synopsis was, we face volatility in social every day. We're at the mercy of the platform algorithms. What worked yesterday doesn't necessarily work today. Next slide. This cartoon from the Marketoonist sums up the situation perfectly. I struggle to think actually of another media channel in 2020 that has fundamentally helped businesses both pivot and communicate new revenue models almost overnight like social has. From the restaurant changing into a boutique grocers selling via social commerce, or the workout studio morphing into a home gym, live streaming sessions to members through groups. The roller coaster analogy is actually very apt for our discipline in other ways too. Although at first you look at the loops, drops and turns, it looks scary, but if you jump on board and enjoy the ride, you can have great fun too. Next slide. New ways of creating and connecting with audiences, I think you have to press play there, is working. According to Kantar, social media actions in the past 3 months has increased by 61%. One result of talent and brands approaching social in fresh new ways. So yes, things are volatile, uncertain, complex and ambiguous, and will continue to be, but stay true to your brand values. And now is the time to innovate, test, diversify and learn. Thank you.
You did it just in time. Fantastic, Ollie. Thank you so much. So we've got lots of questions as usual. We've only got a couple of minutes, so I'll just pick some of the best. We've got one here from Susie who says, what have you seen as the biggest impact on your business during COVID?
I think the pressure on social media. So as I mentioned, seeing the speed in which we need to get things out, we need to talk to our customers, we need to communicate message and things are changing. So that has been social, and we've seen across all our business that real focus of social to be able to do that, as well as the opportunities in which we can on social in terms of communicate new things. So looking at the new social commerce elements that you can add to Instagram, learning and kind of testing on the hoof very quickly amongst our teams and getting that out there and working hand in hand with clients has been the biggest challenge, I'd say.
Brilliant. Question here from Jack, who says, what technology are you most excited about at the moment? And I guess he means what technology in the social media sphere?
We are doing a lot of work through automation. So looking at kind of works in partnerships with Facebook or through FMPs like Sprinkler, how we can use artificial intelligence and automation to improve what we're doing in social. So whether that's through paid strategies, seeing how we can optimize better through machine learning and do that and integrate machine learning through everything we do from an influencer point of view, right through to all our social campaigns.
Fantastic. This question, you've got 1 minute left. It's a question from Ian. It goes back to something that Julia asked, the previous speaker actually. She says, how confident are you with metrics today in social media?
I think we're learning more and more. I think kind of as long as you in terms of set the objectives right and the strategy is correct and everyone's aligned, I think that's the trickiest thing, is making sure that that is communicated through different teams all the way through line, and making sure that there's so much data that we can measure, just making sure that we're measuring the right stuff. So for example, we're not measuring vanity metrics, but really in terms of hard business measures at the moment, which is super critical.
Ollie, absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much for your 15 minutes.
No problem.
Thanks for joining us. So now we'll move on again. We're just about clean to time. Next amazing speaker is Emma Martell. She's head of social media at Avanti, formerly Virgin James, and she's going to talk about ventriloquism in influencer marketing. So, Emma, over to you. You've got 99 seconds.
No. If people trust other people over brands, why is influencer marketing more despised than traditional marketing? According to research, the majority of consumers distrust influencers. Despite a number of high-profile PR disasters for the industry, we're doing little to restore consumers' faith. Instead of blaming influencers for their lack of authenticity, it's time to admit that we're the problem. When we treat influencers like an owned channel, they cease to be real humans. We end up with an army of ventriloquist dummies robotically pushing out scripted messages. They may drive short-term sales, but do you really want your brand represented by a shifty-eyed puppet with a hand up its backside? If consumers are to trust influencers again, we must first trust them. It won't be easy. It's safer to be prescriptive, to seek to control them. But then, why did you hire a human in the first place? It's going to take imagination to redefine their role within marketing. Luckily, influencers are a creative bunch. We need to start telling them our business problems, not just how we want them solved. With a little trust, together, we can restore everyone's faith in influencer marketing.
Bang, you're the first person today that's come in under time, so that's incredible. Congratulations. You win an award, if we had an award to give you. That's absolutely fantastic. Again, loads of questions. Let's try and get through as many as we've got. Bruce says, I love your confidence, but how can I convince my board that have been shocked by the scandals that influencer marketing is still worth paying attention to?
I always think, when I think about influencer marketing, I always think about parenting. I think the more you try to give direction to your child, the more likely they are to have some sort of accident. So when you see your kid climbing on a climbing frame, you say, be careful, don't put your foot there. They're much more likely to fall off than if you just let them do their thing. And I really think there's something to be learned from that, in that when we try to control influencers, you can't control somebody completely, but by trying to, we're actually making them take less responsibility for themselves.
Great question here from Celia, nice and open, and I'll caveat by obviously Avanti do, but she says, who does this well?
I think it's a really good question, and I would love to hear from anybody that has seen some really innovative, original influencer marketing. I recently judged some influencer marketing awards because I wanted to be really inspired and kind of see what the best people out there were doing. And although the campaigns were all, really solid, good campaigns, great use of data, there's loads of tools out there. It really struck me that it was quite formulaic. There wasn't really anything that stood out to me. I probably couldn't tell you what the campaigns were about now, and I think that is quite damning.
Excellent. Now, a question from an anonymous attendee who asks, are brands throwing money at old school influencers because it's easy or because they're not innovative enough?
I think it's a bit of both. I think one of influencer marketing's biggest problems is that it is quite effective. So the way we're doing it at the moment does drive sales. It does get results. So we're not really incentivized to improve it. But I think that there's so much potential that is untapped, particularly because we're working with such creative people. We're not seeing creative campaigns. And I don't think that's their fault. I think it's our fault.
Fantastic, nice. Nice question here from Natalie. She asks, how do people actually define influencer, in inverted commas? Maybe the issue is the fact that influencers are difficult to find, but this marketing team is to truly understand the characteristics, the metrics of influencers. So I guess it's all about definitions. How do you define influencers in the first place, Emma?
Yeah, I think that could be really helpful in terms of making influencer marketing more effective and broadening the scope of it. So when I worked at Hostel World, we started a project around UGC, and we were going to integrate a tool called Olapic, which I think Made.com use. It's a pretty amazing tool, and it allows you to find and curate and request rights to user-generated content. But the bit that I found quite interesting was that it also allows you to kind of track which customers are creating the most influential content. So the content that's converting best on your site, allowing you to reward them. So they may not have a huge audience of their own, but their content is very compelling for whatever reason for your brand. So I think it would be really interesting to see more of that. So not necessarily defining an influencer just by their audience.
Fantastic. Emma, thank you so much. I think we've got one last question I'll quickly fit in this, only because it's being asked all the time at the moment, and it's metrics. It's back to metrics. How are metrics actually working within influencers? How do you measure how do you maneuver the standard measure that audiences seem to use for influencers based on things like followers? Metrics.
I think it really depends why you're working with an influencer. So I'm not trying to disparage brands that purely want to drive sales. I think that is totally valid, and obviously that's quite easy to measure. But I think what is harder is measuring the kind of brand value that influencers can add. And personally, I think there is an element of faith in that. So I don't know whether that can ever be fully measured.
Fantastic. Emma, thank you so much. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So now back to our incredible lineup of content today, and we've got the equally incredible Chris Kenna, who's the CEO of Brandadvance. He's going to be talking to us about using contextual sentiment for behavioural change. Chris, you've got 99 seconds or I will horn you off. Over to you.
Okay, you go to the next slide. So I'm going to tell you a little bit of something that we stumbled on by accident. So Brandadvance doesn't necessarily call itself a social media agency, but what we have is a platform that links all of the diversity media. So we serve the ads within all Black, Asian, minority, ethnic, LGBTQ+, disability, religion, etc. Sitting on top of our platform so that we weren't doing things that, I myself call out in the industry, like keyword blocking. We've been using IBM Watson AI on top of our platform. So it reads every article across all 550 publications and platforms, reads the context and can tell COVID positive sentiment and COVID negative sentiment. But what I suppose the accidental bit that we've come from this is, because this is all real-time data, if you could go to the next slide, it means that actually in real time, and by real time I mean every 175 milliseconds, we can know sort of the sentiment within different demographics in the UK. So we can tell if more people in Manchester are reading positive sentiment around a particular keyword or key phrase than in London. And having this data in real time, knowing how much positive sentiment or negative sentiment is being engaged with, and exactly down to the postcode of where it's been engaged, meant that we could then use this data in one of our first social media. So the next slide, and I know I'm going to run out of time, but where we did it for the NHS and made sure that we could influence people to stick to the COVID government's campaign. And then the next slide gives you the results where action intent.
Chris, sorry, I have to be strict. That's your last 9 seconds up. Thank you so much. And now we're going to turn to questions. I really can't sort of have favourites. So first question, Dominica says, how is the positive or negative sentiment defined by Watson? How do they score that? So you give us a bit of background information on that.
IBM Watson's one of the most trained language AIs that there is out there at the moment. And there's a lot more technical people that could break it down for you, but the levels that I know is that it will take out different key phrases that it has learned, and it knows the sentiment of them key phrases. And then, so COVID, NHS, the NHS are heroes. It will pick out heroes, positive word. It will pick out other words within that. And so COVID, NHS would still be quite positive until it says the death rate has risen. Death, risen, they would be classed as negative. Stick them together, they're a double negative, then it would know that that's a very negative sentiment compared to the positive of NHS heroes.
Right, fantastic. A question here from Steph, and she asked, and again, this is a question we don't have all week, I think, but a valid question. She says, what brands have you been most impressed with over the last 3 months? I guess how they've reacted to the pandemic.
What, specifically around COVID, or?
Yeah, I guess how brands have reacted, in terms of dealing with their consumers and dealing with what's been going on.
Yeah. Brands that have been good are brands like Unilever, Tesco's, in all honesty, and I'm sure I'm not speaking out of turn, they are brands that have not done so bad during COVID because the shops were still open, Tesco's was still open, you know, so they've had the luxury of continued consumers to then be able to continue with campaigns that push good. But most brands that have spoken have to be useful now, don't they? You know, I think that's the change of the world, is we don't need an ad anymore, but we need usefulness. So I think anybody's going to be that.
Fantastic. We've got a minute left. John asked, it's quite a similar question. How do you think, how responsible have media been during the pandemic?
Well, let me do a positive, because I'm sure you all know I spout off enough negative about media. The upspend in Black, Asian, minority ethnic since COVID started is about 300% in multi-ethnic media. So, you know, yeah, there's loads of negatives, and I could spout you 1,000, but there's a positive that's been happening since COVID started.
Great way to end on a positive note, Chris. Chris, thank you so much. You're amazing as always. Now moving on to our next speaker. Again, a quick reminder, everybody, send me in your questions. There's a little Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. We'll get to as many as possible. We've got too many to get through all at once, obviously. Now, our next speaker is Tony Miller. He's CMO of WW, aka Weight Watchers. He's only been there for a short time. He was previously at other huge brands acting the same sort of role. So fascinated to hear what he's got to say. Tony, you've got 99 seconds, or warning, I will horn you off.
All right, you can change to the next slide, please. So WW is the world's leading commercial weight management program with 57 years of history, trust, and efficacy. We're continually evolving to become the world's partner in wellness, helping people to lose weight, eat healthier, move more, shift their mindset, or all of the above, with science-based solutions that fit into people's lives. We work with 99 member ambassadors here in the UK who are very active on social media in their own right. In the UK, they have a combined following of 750,000. These members are selected because they are hugely passionate about our brand and the WW program. They authentically share their powerful stories through inspiring content, motivating a diverse audience of others on the journey or look to get started. They're credible, authentic, and real. People can relate to them, and they are open to share the highs and lows of their own journey. The common thread each of our ambassadors is they're passionate about our mission. We believe they have the ability to inspire healthy habits with their own communities, and they have a why, a reason they have made their health a priority. There's no cookie cutter formula, but we are clearly evident that our roster are extremely thoughtful about who we partnership with. And there's a video to prove the point here if you want to press play. Oh, is that not set up to press play? It was embedded. Oh well. There's an ad that we used of our key member ambassadors that really just tell real life stories about how they're actually finding success. So in summary, it's real life, real people telling real stories.
Tony, you just got in. Thank you so much. You just ran for 10 seconds, but that was my fault, so I was being slow. So thank you very much. A fantastic presentation. Again, let me pick from some of the questions we've got coming in here. And there's one here from Chris, who asks, how has your choice of platforms changed over the last few months? I guess it means different media.
Yeah, we basically, I mean, I'm trying to work each platform as hard as possible in terms of just optimizing our media spend, because obviously money right now, there has been a lot of cuts across the board, and so the money that we've got left, we have to use most effectively. So I'm reviewing daily with my team and our media agency, and it's all down to performance and optimization. So what is providing the best and strongest CPAs? How is it doing with overall signups? And then we're just transferring money and funneling it into the tightest, most effective platform. So for us, display has been working hard. Social is still working really hard for us. And search, obviously, with the situation we're in, we're right up there in terms of our brand and search.
Fantastic. Mary asks, she says, what about behavioural change, and do you think it will continue? So I guess she sort of means, you know, how your consumers different now than they were, and do you think those patterns are going to replicate?
Yeah, absolutely. I think we're doing a lot of research around how people are finding lockdown and what is that doing on people's mental state and physical well-being. And we're really trying to tap into that to really understand where consumers' heads are, to provide relevant, creative, and messaging and content that's appropriate. So it really hits the right people at the right time and on the right platform.
Right. Another great question here from Aisha, who asks, how do you get people past the stigma of talking about their weight openly and becoming advocates?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think, we've got, we drill into the reasons why. That's the kind of question we ask, their why factor in terms of why they started. And most people that join WW are passionate about their reasons. And if they start to see success in terms of weight loss initially, they actually are really open to talking. We've got an internal, almost social media platform within the app itself. And it's massively engaged in terms of people just supporting each other. It's that accountability factor that helps.
Perfect. And the question is leading quite nicely on, actually, from Imi. Are you seeing more engagement with these ambassador posts during lockdown?
Absolutely. I think, one thing the pandemic has helped us is the relevancy of our brand for people. I think people have become more anxious. Our snacking has increased. Alcohol consumption has increased. And I think we've just been relevant and there for an answer to help people.
Right. And there's a question here now from Joan. She asks, how important is traditional media? So I guess she means, how important is it in your overall social strategy?
Yeah, it's definitely integrated. So I think the messages that we're saying, like with this TV ad that just went on air, are all about kind of this whole be well and stay strong message, with championing what our member ambassadors are doing. And that actually is translated all through our social content and platforms. So they're definitely tied into each other. Our brand is more of a DR brand element anyway. So it's completely dovetailed.
And there's a question here from Sue, who asks, how do you think consumer behavior is going to change, and how's that going to impact your marketing strategy next year? So it's not just after COVID, it's next year.
Yeah, I think it's all about how relevant we are as a brand, and I think people coming out of lockdown are going to be taking health more seriously. I mean, with the links of obesity and death rates are a massive concern. And I think as people are more anxious, aren't sleeping as well potentially, and aren't moving as much, we will definitely be there to support people through this and try to encourage and get people moving again. It's not just about weight loss, it's about kind of the whole wellness aspect. So that's our kind of key pillar that will continue on post-COVID into next year.
Tony, fantastic. Thank you so much. Thanks for joining us.
You're welcome. My pleasure.
Without further ado, Matthew, over to you. And you're not live, so I can't haul you off, but I'll haul you off anyway. Let's play video now.
Hi everyone, I'm Matthew Goldhill, and I'm here today to tell you how you can run influencer campaigns without using social media. I'm founder of Picnic. We're an ad marketplace that delivers the high quality ad experience of social media on the open web. We created these products because normal digital display advertising kind of sucks, as you probably know as you're at an influencer marketing day. So we take the formats and functionality of social media and we put them in this premium editorial context. Over the last 2 years, we've worked with brands big and small, taking their normal Facebook and Instagram assets and running campaigns for them. Today, I'm really pleased to announce we've launched a product specifically for influencer marketers called Social Amplify. It solves a problem we thought a lot about internally, namely, why do we never see influencer content outside of social media? This content is authentic and aspirational. It's really product driven, and as I'm sure you know, it drives great results. Brands shouldn't limit their influencer content just to social media. We think influencer posts should benefit from being served in premium editorial context, like articles by The Evening Standard or Marie Claire. And that's exactly what our Influencer Amplified product does. And the cool thing is we've made it incredibly easy to try. We built a platform called Studio, which allows you to take an Instagram link, paste it in the platform, and in real time, we create a Picnic post ready to go. So that's a 99-second brief summary on how you can win customers and influence people, but without needing to use social media.
Amazing. And I didn't horn you off, and I wish I could horn off a video because I never horned a video, but that's Incredible. Now we've got, I hope, Matthew on the line live.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can indeed. Matthew, hi. Thanks for joining us. So, great presentation. Let's go through some questions. And I really should stop doing this, but Julia, I'm going to turn to you again just because you're asking so many questions. And they're always very good questions. So she asks, is it not easier to just put your money on Facebook? Nice and blunt as ever, Julia.
Thanks, Julia. So there's two ways of answering that. One is we have just made it incredibly easy. As I said, we've created a platform which allows you to take it, an Instagram, create it, paste it in a platform, and you're ready to go. So there's no setup, there's nothing challenging about it at all. But second of all is the value you get from taking it outside of social media platforms. So you get the context of premium editorial. So you're not just alongside, I don't know, cat videos or UGC, but you're alongside editorial content which users actually enjoy reading. And then the second thing is, I think, a really important thing to talk about at the moment, which is giving money to journalism. Paying for editorial content is a super important principle of a free internet. And this is another way of making sure advertiser money goes directly to publishers and cuts out kind of social network middlemen. So it isn't hard to do, but there's also lots of value in putting your money outside of just social media.
Fantastic. Natalie asks, what do you mean by amplification? How does the product really amplify the content?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think one of the hidden things about influencer content, which a lot of people in this room or Zoom call know, is you produce the content and that's part of your budget, but you need to make sure it's seen, right? You need probably put a lot of budget behind it and boost it on Instagram and Facebook. So the amplification is getting eyeballs. And we're proposing having a new eyeball channel, essentially, alongside editorial content, not just on social media. So yeah, it's getting it in front of new audiences. And as I kind of said in my, well, it's not my video, my presentation just a second ago, this content is really powerful and it doesn't just need to sit alongside influencer content. It can be used as kind of hero content, as I think the Weight Watchers people showed really nicely in their presentation.
Fantastic. Another shy attendee, anonymous. How do you overcome the content right challenge?
So that's a pretty detailed question, but all content put onto social media ends up being part of a commons copyright law. So there is no kind of content problem we have there. If the brand has paid for the content or paid for the content or paid for the influencer, that they can do whatever you want. There are kind of privacy policy things about using Instagram content, but that's a very different conversation and doesn't talk about content copyright specifically.
Fantastic. Gabrielle asks, with the platform, does it overlay audience targeting like you would with digital display advertising, or is the influencer audience handpicked?
Yeah, so it doesn't use Facebook or social media targeting. We use Google targeting, which in our opinion is just as powerful. So yeah, you can pick whatever audience you want, right down to like people shopping for Christmas presents, demographics as well. But then there's also really powerful context as well. And I think that is one of the key things that you get on editorial content is context. So someone reading about, I don't know, TV shows to watch is going to be interested in your TV show. And you don't really get that on Facebook. So yeah, you get additive targeting with our product.
Fantastic. Question from Imi. I might start a competition, the most avid questioners, and you get a big prize at the end. Imi's doing well. No one beats Julia, but Imi's doing very well. Imi asks, how much control do you have over what content the posts appear in? How do you ensure that it's well aligned?
So what, in terms of targeting again? Well, I guess we have like all the same brand safety and targeting tools that a digital display campaign would have. So audience targeting, contextual targeting, keyword blocking, whitelist and blacklist. I would kind of turn the question around and say you kind of have no control over context or Instagram and Facebook. You're just in the user feed. So you get way more context control with our platform. But like all the standard and really powerful tools apply, and we can target incredibly granularly based on what content is on the page.
Question here from Priya, and again, this has been asked non-stop. The same question I'm not even putting to speakers, but it's an important question. Priya asks, what brands have you been most impressed with in the last few months?
Yeah, I don't necessarily like brands which try and make us say thank you and kind of get involved in movements. Certainly at this time where there's lots of genuine political, turmoil and contention going on, I don't necessarily think that brands live in that space. And you know what? Sometimes we just want to watch TV and ignore these things. So a brand like BritBox has done really well. You know, a young, well, kind of British upstart competing against Netflix and Disney Plus for streamer budgets. And they've done a whole host of really good content showing you what programs are being added on that platform, different angles. I think they're a really good UK tech challenger brand, and hopefully in the lockdown period with lots of people watching more TV, they've done well.
Matthew, fantastic. Thanks so much. Thanks for joining us. Bye-bye. So we've got a bit of exciting news. Mary Keane-Dawson, who I horned off at the very start of today's festival, she's going to pop back on because lots of people have been messaging and saying they want to hear her whole poem. And why was I so mean? Anyway, she's coming back on in a few minutes, but before that, we'll go across to Andy again, our poll master, and see what's going on the polls. Andy, are you there? I'll move across now.
I am, Justin.
Wow.
What you probably can't see is I've had to move to a separate part of the building because we can't be in the same room whilst we talk to each other.
Well, so you must come back in here. But anyway, give us some poll updates.
Right. We've switched to a new poll. And I wonder if, sorry, can you hear that? There's a load of feedback coming through. If, like me, Justin, you've been inspired by today, I think what we should be doing is becoming influencers ourselves. So what I've done is I've asked the assembled throng here, what market should we go into? We want to be influencers. We've said it for an awful long time. So should we go into fashion? Should we be high-end alcohol influencers? Or definitely for you, athleisure. You've always wanted to be an influencer. Which market do you think you'd work best in? Justin?
Oh, sorry, it's me. Which market do I work best in?
Yeah.
We wouldn't do bad in the shirts market. That's probably my favourite market to be in.
I can't hear it. Yeah, I think that would be good. I think that would be good.
Although I was once on a socks blog, so I'd like to go into the socks influencer market.
Would you be able to show your socks to the viewers because they are pretty special today?
No.
Okay, well that's good.
I could show them. Well, maybe they should wait a bit for that, but they are quite nice. They're not. I'm not using the shoe. My socks are quite nice.
They'll be appearing on the pub wall.
The socks will be appearing on the pub wall pretty soon, so that's coming.
There's a comment in from Julia Smith, which will surprise nobody. Athlete fashion every time for both of you. Andy in Lycra every time. Julia, I can only advise that you seek some help. I think you're in a strange and dark place right now. Ask your family to help you. And then Gillian Grattan, fancy booze all the way. Gillian, I think you may know us better than others, and that's great stuff. Interesting stuff. The first poll, the second poll we had of the day was that there are too many influencers out there. And then what I find strange is then we're moving to nano influencers and micro influencers. Do you think we've moved on from big influencers? Do you think the whole market has changed? Justin?
I'm sorry, we're having a bit of technical problems over here in the background, but before we answer that, well, you might hear that in a few minutes, but I think we're going to cut now to Mary Keane-Dawson, so we're sort of juggling different streams of content today, as I'm sure you can imagine. So, Andy, I will answer your question sometime soon, but I think hopefully now we're going to go back over to Mary. Mary, are you there?
I am.
Hooray! So sorry to cut you off so much, but your public has demanded you return.
Well, I think I'm one of the very few women that can say she's been horned by Justin Pierce.
And you lucky lady. So anyway, back over to you. I'll shut up.
Okay, creators in the time of coronavirus. Yesterday, I was in a rat race. Today, I'm in the human race. Tomorrow, will I be in the AI race? Yesterday, I felt young and I was naive. Today, I feel bruised, but I'm on my bended knee. Tomorrow, I am determined to make humanity believe. Oh, COVID-19, what pain you did bring. Every day is a wet Wednesday, even though the sun spells spring. All are in a fog of sadness and confusion, whilst blustered by the windy politics of delusion. As foxes trump out fake news, and Forbes statistics give us all the blues. The searing pain of losing those you love, while we listen to the soundtrack, the dirge of bullies, the chants of enthusiasts, and the howling of polemicists. Where are those that can save us? Where are our artists? To entertain me, to explain to me, to connect with me in my isolation. The carousel of creators is funny, self-aware, and at the same time sad, ingenious, spontaneous, and occasionally just mad. They can be hard to watch and even harder to stop watching. Yet we drive to distract ourselves and each other in our desire to move from winter into summer. Yesterday, I longed for a life less ordinary. Today, I am immersed in a world of voice, music, and talent. Tomorrow, I will be a celebrant at our rainbow pageant. Yesterday, I thought oppression was something to overcome. Today, I know this will only happen through our unassailable conduct. Tomorrow, we will look to each other and build a new construct. There you go.
Mary, amazing. Thank you so much. Definitely worth waiting for. We've got quite a few questions coming in. We've got time, I just think, to get to. The first one's from Bob. He says, Mary, I used to read your column on MBA. I work in media and I'm frankly quite terrified about coming back. I guess he means coming back after COVID, with all the layoffs he's seeing. What's your advice for what I can do to make myself industry ready come the return?
Well, I think to Katie Howell's presentation she gave earlier on, I think the most important thing is to really understand what the data is saying, because we have seen such a terrific shift in consumer behaviors and what audiences are doing and how they are consuming media and what their expectations are of media, that has implications for all of us in media and all of us in the content and creative sectors. So I think what you've really got to do is immerse yourself in what the key trends are and how that's going to impact, because I think having an authoritative opinion about that is really going to be important, because clients need confidence right now, but they also need to take risks.
Absolutely. Mary, question from me. I mean, I've known you a very long time. You've been in the industry for a very long time, done and seen most things, but you're sort of relatively new in the influencer industry. You're CEO now, Takumi. What were you most surprised about and most sort of shocked about when you first went into that section of the industry?
Well, I actually have been involved in influence for about 5 years, because I sat on as a non-exec on 2 or 3 different boards, all influencer-related businesses. But I think actually going into an influencer business and an agency is just how terrifically energetic and youthful it is. And I mean that in the nicest possible way, because it reminds me a lot of Search about 10 years ago, when, you know, we were still kind of trying to work out how to kind of get clients to engage with it in a meaningful way. And once you crack that nut, I think, you know, it really, really, it exploded the search sector. You know, Stake was bought by Dentsu, et cetera, et cetera. But one of the things I think about what you know, the influencer sector is doing, there does seem to me to be a group of influencer businesses that are actually leading the way in terms of what we're doing with data. There's a huge crossover with UGC technologies and businesses in that sector, which is why we shared the panel today with Commit. And also, I think the other thing that's really, really exciting is just the creativity. I mean, these young and old, because you have boomers who are on TikTok with massive followings and who go viral. There is just huge amounts of creativity. And I think that that's what will save humanity. It is our creativity that will get us out of this shit show.
Mm-hmm. Well, let's put the question, Andy's change a bit, puts me earlier, nano influencers. And yeah. Gillian's asked something quite similar, you know. What's your view on nano influencers and their place in the marketing ecosystem?
Well, I think nano influencers offer an incredibly powerful means for brands to understand what is happening trend-wise. I mean, we've seen several nano influencers on the Takumi platform that have just gone on to become absolutely mega stars. And they started off with maybe just like, you know, sub 1,000 followers, but because of their talent and because of the way that they understood their passion and how they go about things, they've become really, really influential. And in a sense, it's like, the kind of coolest people that they don't really seek to be, to be popular necessarily. What they do seek to be is to be informed and to be knowledgeable and to be expert in what they love and are passionate about. And that's exactly what nano influencers are, essentially. The greatest thing about them is the levels of engagement that they provide. And I think their opinion is so valuable. And although they may not have that many followers, they have hugely influential followers because people choose to follow those, slightly more quirky or unusual people. And where they lead, brands need to really listen up. Again, I refer to Katie's presentation. They need to listen up and understand what is actually happening with influencers and what they're talking about, who they're caring about, what they're passionate about, and what their expectations are. Because that sort of data and insight is incredibly valuable, incredibly rich, and it's contextual. So I think that they are increasingly becoming more and more important, and that is one of the reasons why businesses like ours and other influencer businesses that specialize in the macro and the nano influencer space at scale are doing well, despite this extremely difficult period that the whole sector's going through, and I'm talking about the advertising sector, is going through right now.
Very fantastic. Thank you so much for coming back and asking questions. And I'll see you in the virtual pub later. Thanks for putting this twice.
Take care.
Thank you so much.
Soon. Take care, everybody. Bye.
This is a good one. This is Alex Lazare, who's founder of The Past. It's good because it's the restaurant of the future. And I think we're all thinking now about the restaurant of the future. That's what I'm sort of obsessed about at the moment. So I can't wait to get back. I'm in Soho looking at all the places I used to spend a lot of time and locked out of them. But let's find out what the restaurant of the future is going to be like. So without further ado, Alex, over to you. You've got 99 seconds to tell us, or I horn you off. Alex, go.
My journey to the future started in April the 28th, in fact. I was bored. I'd been locked inside my small London flat alone for 6 weeks. I'd cooked 140 meals, watched 70 hours of cooking programs, and baked 4 banana breads. Standing at my sink, cleaning the same pan for what felt like the 7th time that day, I began to hallucinate. I imagined myself somewhere else, at my favourite restaurant, the cooking and washing up done for me. I wondered whether my favourite places would even survive lockdown, and where I'd get my favourite bowls and fried chicken from when this was all over. And as I wondered, my mouth began to salivate. I imagined all of it in one place. The restaurant of the future, like a traditional Italian mercado, bursting with top quality produce and innovative restaurant concepts, offering me everything I ever wanted, all under one roof. All my favourite dishes and ingredients, stories, personalities, interactive cooking stations, and the experience of the chef's table at every table. My restaurant of the future wasn't the market on Mars or a spaceship selling sushi. It was social, in a way restaurants haven't been social before. And then I stopped dreaming and started doing, before my favourite restaurants disappeared into the COVID abyss. I've spent the last month creating The Past, an ever-evolving virtual cookbook from the world's best restaurants. And us, one of this week's sponsors, actually built our MVP in 3 weeks using no-code platform Webflow. We've already got over 30 of London's top restaurants to share over 150 of their most popular dishes. And right now we're operating purely as a fundraiser for the hospitality industry itself, encouraging people to donate what they can, with all funds going directly to the industry to help them get through this challenging time. But this is just phase one. Once we're out the other side, The Past will become the restaurant of the future I hallucinated. A world of restaurant recipes and a social network for food lovers and restaurant partners, helping brands to diversify their exposure off the restaurant floor and inspiring the cooking public to discover and cook the best food ever invented. Wish us luck.
That's amazing. You did it within times you didn't get hold of. Thank you so much for that talk. It's quite inspirational. It's just the sort of thing we want to be hearing at the moment. So lots of questions coming in. I'm going to pick some of the best. First one here is from Tom, who asks, do you think any business can pivot so fast?
Do I think any can?
Any can. I guess he's saying that, there's so much, every business now is being forced to change, but can every business really have a hope of total sort of survival?
I think it's tough. I think you'll find over the next few months that a lot of, particularly in the restaurant industry, a lot of restaurants that were working on razor thin margins and haven't been able to break forward and end up sort of finding new revenue streams, will end up having to shut down. Particularly in and around city centres where the lunch trade isn't going to quite be what it was for a long time to come. It will result in a consolidation on the high street, particularly around restaurants. But, you know, we're seeing increasingly with the amount of restaurants that are bringing out recipe boxes, the amount of restaurants that are bringing out, you know, bringing recipes onto their websites, or, you know, doing hot food delivery when they've never done it before, or doing, you know, bringing out spice mixes and all that sort of stuff, that people are able to move incredibly quickly. And it gives me a huge amount of confidence, particularly within the hospitality industry, that, you know, even with the challenges that we're clearly going to be facing over the next 6, 12, 18 months, that, you know, a lot of it will come out the other side and we'll be stronger for it.
Okay, there's a question here from Kevin who asks, how do you think the restaurant industry is going to change in its use of different media in the next year? I guess he means not just social media, but you know, TV and all the sort of different tools out there.
No, it's good question. I mean, well, one of the things that we would love to happen is that the pass in when we sort of move it forward to this next stage becomes a channel by which restaurants can interact with their customers, can build a deeper relationship with their customers. So, you know, what we're trying to do in this first stage is create the sort of a virtual and interactive cookbook, but going forward, we want to blow that out to effectively be the social channel for restaurants to connect with their customers, not just through recipes, but also through sales of different style of ingredients and recipes and cookbooks, but also to open up an active conversation. One of the things that I've found, particularly as a user, but as well as so from a business perspective, Instagram and a lot of the other social channels are getting very busy. They're getting very crowded, and as a result, it's very difficult to get cut through for a brand. And it's also very difficult for a consumer to sort of to interact with a specific section, you know, a specific type of business. I feel like one of the trends that we'll see going forward is that there will be an increasing amount of specialism in the social world and in sort of social networks in general. And I think that you'll find that restaurants and other types of company will increasingly migrate towards those specialist platforms.
Fantastic. Last question, we've just got time. This is from Trisha. And I'd ask the same question, actually. What's your favourite real-world restaurant?
Very good question. So Barafina is up there for me. I think what they've done to tapas Spanish food has been absolutely phenomenal. And I was incredibly happy when they moved from the smaller site to the slightly larger site still in Soho. I also have actually a very good friend of mine opened up a restaurant in the last 6 or 9 months. Obviously, they're not the best time to open up a restaurant called Bubbler, which is Middle Eastern food but vegetarian, and it is fantastic. You wouldn't even know that it was vegetarian if you weren't a vegetarian. I like small plates where I can taste quite a lot of stuff, as you can probably tell.
Good tips. Well, that's it. Your time's up. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. So moving on quickly to our next speaker. Remember, again, questions, Q&A button, bottom of your screen, or the chat button, but that just confuses me. Just try and use the Q&A button. So now we've got Karl Newman. He is MD of Publicis Media Content. He's been talking about bringing a different type of creative into the creative industry. This is something I think that's an endemic issue in this industry. So, Karl, you've got 99 seconds, or you get horned off. It's over to you.
Thank you. I'll race through this. Okay, so reflecting on what's happening today, the conversations within in our company, the wider industry, society, we should all recognise that now is a time to accelerate change, particularly around diversity in our creative industry. For so long, it's been the home of the middle class, white, privately educated male, and all their cultural behavioural codes make it difficult for others to get into and do well in this industry. As a working class lad from the edge of a council estate in Blackpool, I've been lucky enough to decipher that code. And in doing so, I compromised myself. Sure, I grew up, I got a degree, but I lost my accent. I moved to Clapham and learned to wear slacks. Some of those things are quite trivial, and not everyone's that lucky. A lot of people have real big physical barriers getting in their way. And those that do join our industry from that white, middle class, privately educated background find it a lot easier, especially in the early parts of their careers, to actually assimilate and do well. And what's this got to do with influencers? Well, there's an opportunity in our industry, almost unique to our industry. in advertising, media and TV to mimic and build on what actually the fifth at News UK are doing. And if they're doing it, anyone can do it. They're using tools, the tech in place, to reach new audiences by finding influencers that are talking to those audiences and bringing them into their titles, adding their creativity to what they're doing. We've all got the same tech and ability to identify influencers, understand their creativity, and work out who their audience are. But rather than just use those influencers to create influencer partnerships, let's invite them into our world fully. Let's properly engage with them, either on actual projects or as valuable client partners. After all, who's a better creative for that 55-year-old white middle-class privately educated male? Is it a 25-year-old version of himself, or is it someone with a true affinity for their audience, someone who's creating for their audience every day and does so every day? Is it the influencer?
Karl, you did it within time, but I wanted to horn you off anyway. Thank you so much. Absolutely fantastic, 99 seconds. Lots of questions coming in, lots of quite granular questions, which is interesting. So I think, I suppose everyone knows this is such an issue, but how to address it. Emily says, everything you said really struck a chord, but how can I change things from the ground up at my agency? I'm in quite a junior position.
Yeah, I mean, that's the challenge. We've got to change culture and we've got to change cultural codes. But I think, just starting off with where we are in the influencer space is really it. And learning from what Oliver Lewis and the team at the Fifth and News UK are doing and taking people into their publications, inviting influencers in. We've got to try and curate those conversations with our own companies, whether you're a TV broadcaster, whether you're a creative agency or a media agency. How can you bring those influencers in as actual creative talent? Now, at the moment, that does happen, but it happens in a really bad way. It happens in a way where we're using tech and tools to reach out and brief out 150, 200 different influencers. They'll come back, do loads of work, and we pick one like they're a champion. That's not how we should be doing it. We've got to do it like we're doing with influencer marketing, where we're using our tech to identify that influencer, and we actually reach out to them as creators, treat them with some respect, choose the right ones using that tech, and then almost interview them, bring them into that process, give them the brief and try and work properly with them. I think there's a huge amount of creativity out there, and we're not tapping into it in the right way. In fact, what we've got one hand, we've got an old creative industry, and we've got a new load of tech entrepreneurs all trying to milk the industry for money, when actually what we need to be doing is protecting it and working out how we make this the really valuable source of new creativity. I look at the broadcast space as the worst example of this. They did start reaching out to creative talent, and they were brilliant at reaching out to young creative talent in the 90s. Look at what Channel 4 used to create in the 90s. But all those people have got older, and they're all 30 years older, and they're all still in the same jobs. They're all still the same production companies, the same creators, the same commissioners. It's insane. And that's why they're reaching 55, 60-year-old audiences. So we've got to go backwards. We've got to find new creative talent, and the influencer platforms, that's where these creators are. They're not pop stars anymore. They're not trying to get into a proper career. They're out there creating for themselves because they have the tools and tech to do it. And we've got the access through our tools and tech to reach out to them.
Karl, fantastic. I think we're going to, lots of questions coming in, but we're a bit over time. I'll let you run over because I loved what you were saying. But one last question from an anonymous attendee. You mentioned the Fifth, owned by Newsco, doing good things. Rather than build a diversity program at their influence agency, wouldn't it be better if Newsco and their paper, The Sun, stopped publishing racist content? Now, I asked that question. It's quite divisive,
no, totally.
But that's the first thing.
So I'm using them not as an example of diversity. I'm using them as an example of using, and that's why I qualified it with saying if they can do it, anyone can do it. They're using the tech to identify new creative talent and bring them in. I'm not saying they're doing a great job of bringing diversity in, and that's what we need to do. We need to change our direction. Use the same methodology that they're using to actually bring new talent into their titles, but actually we've got to do that. We've got to recognize what that talent is, and that is a more diverse pool of talent, and we've got to bring them into our creative process, and we have to take ownership of that ourselves. I use that as a very loose example because there is some good work going on there, but it's with the wrong company, and it's with a very difficult company to understand that around.
Well, thanks so much. Thanks for asking that. Lots of comments coming in saying they agree with the question, so that's what I'll say. But Karl, you've been fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us. Now we're going on to the much talked about by me in the wrong way a lot of the time. Lauren Spearman, she's doing her live cocktail making soon. She's going to be making a Monday Mexican mule from Moscow, maybe. So before she does that, we're going to have a lovely 99-second talk from her. Are your influencers closer to home than you think? So, Lauren, over to you for your 99-second talk.
Justin, influencer by definition is a person that has the ability to influence the behaviour or opinions of others. However, influencers often confused with someone that's just got a load of followers on social media. That indicates they're popular, yes, but doesn't necessarily mean they carry influence. When I think of influencer, I think of tastemakers, storytellers, and most importantly, people with credibility and expertise. Someone that can share your brand message in their own way because the audiences trust what they say. We know that brand trust is low, but consumers trust people. Therefore, when I talk about the potential for your best influencers being closer to home than you think, I of course mean your employees. Should we be doing more to amplify these voices? And if so, what can we do? And I say this as I sit on a made sofa that I purchased over 2 years ago before I started working for the brand. The beauty industry are pretty well versed in employee advocacy. In my previous role at Benefit Cosmetics, we distribute product in advance for employees to share on social, try it out and share with their friends and family. We'd use employees in content. We as staff presented live videos rather than use models. We use the people behind the brand to share our products and create an engaged community. To summarise, my thought starter this afternoon is this. If there's a possibility that our best influencers are right on our doorstep, what can we do to make them feel welcome in our home?
Lauren, fantastic. Thank you so much. And bang on time. It's quite amazing. People are getting better and better as the day progresses. I've got some questions here before we have a quick break as you go and cocktail prepare. There's a question here from Agnes, and she asks, Agnes here, she asks, how do you allocate budget to influencer? And that's it. I guess she says, I guess I'm sort of translating, how much do you carve out your overall marketing budget?
Oh, I could just get allocated a budget. So I'm not in charge of budgets. I just beg and steal, and by proving that what we're doing is work, get given a little bit more each time.
Fair enough. Okay, question here from George, who asks, what's the quickest way to find the right influencers for my brand? I work in B2B. Again, this is a question we get quite a lot of events, that a lot of the talk, a lot of stuff in the press is about consumer brands, but people like in B2B brands sometimes feel someone's a bit left out, I think. So what's your advice for that sort of?
Okay, so I'm going to give you an example which ties into cocktail making earlier. My boyfriend is a mixologist and so good at making cocktails, which is why I'm making a cocktail. And, you know, if say you're working for a drinks brand, the people that are, you know, behind the bar, they're your best influencers. They're serving your drinks. They're the one that's telling your customers about the drinks. So often it doesn't necessarily have to be an influencer in the terms of someone that's on social media. There's so many spheres of influence that you can tap into.
Fantastic. Question here, and someone else quite shy, anonymous. Have you brought your beauty expertise into your role at Made.com?
Oh, what a question. No, not necessarily. I left makeup for a reason, just wasn't massively an interest. But talking about employee advocacy, I left Benefit over a year ago, and still to this day, I got a DM yesterday asking me what's the best waterproof mascara. So I'm a kind of ex-employee being, you know, advocating the brand still.
Fantastic. Another anonymous question was, how do you utilise employee content above the line? How do you reward them, intrinsic or extrinsic?
There's a sense of being noticed by the company. There was a question earlier, I think, from someone saying, you know, how at a junior level do you be noticed, which I think hierarchy is just awful for this kind of stuff sometimes, and actually you know at any level you can have an idea, and equally at any level you can have a great piece of content that could be used, you know, above the line. Yes, you can be rewarded with product, cash helps too, and I think there is a sense of being noticed and being appreciated by the business. That acknowledgement goes a long way.
Perfect. A question that leads directly on from this, which I think is quite sort of lots to dig into. Lauren asks, how do you get your senior stakeholders to trust staff to be the influencer, you know, and then what happens when they leave? There's a lot of trust if the board's given someone that might just disappear.
I mean, one, just start doing it and proving. Often it's like, it's easier to beg for forgiveness than ask for permission. You know, you don't have to be spending budget to be encouraging staff. massively. You can just be really smart. You can be asking people, would they be happy to, in exchange for maybe some product, or film in their lunchtime, and actually once you start seeing that, then in theory senior stakeholders should get on board.
Amazing.
Lauren, it's been done sometimes.
Absolutely superb. We're going to give you a little break now to go and set up and do whatever mixologists do, and we'll come back to you in a minute for the cocktail making competition. In the meantime, I think we're going to pop over and talk to our poll master about the latest poll results, and look at the artwork. And so, Shinsek.
You know what? We'll absolutely nail that muting tomorrow. We'll have that absolutely sorted. So, where are we on the poll? I will check live. So, if you remember, this was the poll that was all about Justin and I wanting to be going to a market. What market should we work in? It was fashion, it was high-end alcohol brands, or it was athleisure. It's a pretty resounding win for high-end alcohol brands. Justin and I, 54%. I think Justin and I should become high-end alcohol brands. So for all the high-end alcohol brands who are obviously on the line watching this, just send the stuff in. We're here in Soho. Just keep switching. Just keep hunting around with literally the only people working on Wardour Street today. Now, I think for one final time today, we're going to go over to the artwork, which is up on your screen now. Some fantastic stuff there. Now, if you remember, this was all done live. This is all being done live by Annie over at Three Blind Mice. This is all a graphical presentation of what's been happening today. And to be able to get on with that, as well in 99-second bursts, is fantastic. Important to remember is it's going to happen all again tomorrow. Tomorrow, we've got some fantastic brands coming on. We've got Jerry Dakin from GSK. We've got Pete Markey from TSB. We've got representatives from Vodafone and Coca-Cola. So make sure you come back tomorrow. We're back on again at 3 o'clock. He said, looking around the room, yes, definitely 3 o'clock. By which stage we will have all had a couple of the cocktails going here. And frankly, I think we need them. Just.
So we are now going to move on to, actually, I'll just move. So Andy, thank you very much. We're going to move on to the main event of the whole day, which is live cocktail making from Lauren, who you heard earlier. So in a second now, we're going to move across, and then we'll come back to me for a wrap up, and then to find out who's won all our amazing competitions. So Lauren, are you sort of ready to go?
I am ready.
There. Marvelous Mexico Monday, Moscow Yule, maybe. Lauren, I think we're going to say in a second now. Over to you.
Okay, so the reason that I'm drinking cocktails today, I've spent most of my lockdown just drinking. It started off a cocktail a day, and then now I just reduce it to weekends. But I wanted to make a cocktail because there's never any reason not to drink. And I'm using, of course, a made glass. I'm making a Mexican mule, which is a tequila-based take on a Moscow mule. So swapping out the vodka for tequila. Mainly because I have been, I had, like most people, I've had bad experience with tequila at uni, and you just get put off it. So I've been experimenting with different ways outside of just margaritas and shots for tequila, and using it as a long drink. So that's I'm going to start by pouring 50 ml of tequila into the glass. So this is reposado tequila, which means it's been rested in an oak barrel for 3 to 6 months. Fun fact for you. So that's 50 ml going in there. I'm going to use 10 ml of agave syrup. So let's pop that in. You can use sugar syrup or honey syrup, it's quite a good one. Just mixing 1 part honey with 1 part water. Heat it up till it dissolves. And then let it cool and serve. I'm then going in with 15 ml of lime juice, which is roughly the equivalent of half a lime. So just pop that in there. Give it a really good squeeze. Then ginger beer. I'm going to use about half a can of ginger beer in this glass. Pop that in. Give that a little stir. I feel very professional using a real bar spoon. Then we're going to top up with ice. We garnish with squeeze of fresh lime. Just put that on there. And then I'm going to take some mint. Just going to wipe a little bit of mint around the top of the glass. And then, voila, a Mexican mule. Oh, that's delicious. Ending my money on a high.
Lauren, amazing. Thank you so much. Cheers. I would cheers you, but I don't have a drink, which is very unthought of us. So, Lauren, thank you so much. I think we'll turn it now to wrapping up the day. So thank you so much, everyone, for joining us today. Some wrapping up notes. We've heard incredible speakers all day today, and we've got even more tomorrow. As Andy mentioned earlier, we've got Jerry Dagan from GSK, Valentini from Coca-Cola, Leo from Vodafone, and hundreds more. So we've got a few things to announce. First of all, the Networker of the Day competition. That's the prize for the people that have been most active and useful, engaged in our networking part of the app. And the winner is our very own Ian Houghton. Surprise, surprise, but I mean, he doesn't really count, so let's ignore that. So the real winner, the real first prize is Shane White. And the runner-up is Sylvian Beckelem. So thank you so much. You are the networkers of the day. You're the best networkers in the whole country at the moment. And you've won prizes. I've just been told you've won prizes. You've won tickets to MadFest. They'll be coming your way very, very shortly. What else I've got to tell you about as we wrap up? So remember to download the mobile app so that you can take part in all these competitions and networking I've been talking about. Download the app, you can join in. And then let's turn to the winner now of the Mexican Mule. Mexican Monday Moscow Mule. Maybe, no, really, here's the winner. It's Hannah from Tagger. So congratulations, you've won a prize and a home cocktail making set on its way to you now. As we speak, on its way on a bike. I mean, almost, let's pretend. Almost on its way to you now, but congratulations, you won the prize. So I think that's all I've got to say. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been an amazing day, an exhausting day. We've got even more amazing stuff to come tomorrow. So again, thank you so much and look forward to seeing you tomorrow. Goodbye.